I thought e-commerce is done and all e-commerce is now equal to quick commerce.
If you're not delivering through quick commerce, in a few hours or less than an hour, I think customers have basically now become used to that experience.
So are you saying companies like Zomato and Swiggy can be disrupted?
If AI helps me understand my body better, it'll actually help me shop products which are far more efficacious for myself.
What Indian founders lack is understanding the global customer as well, which I think is improving very rapidly.
Hi and welcome to the Zero to Infinity podcast. My name is Rajinder. Tarun, Rajat, thanks for joining us on this one. This one's going to be on consumer and the next Tech-Ade for consumer. We'll cover both consumer tech and brands, but obviously these things are merging. I think the headline is, at least in my head, if I look over the next decade, well on track to being a 10 trillion economy. Do the math, somewhere we'll end up in the $6,000-$7,000 per capita income zone. But if I fast forward to 2047, which is 20-25 years from now, that looks like $15,000 to $20,000. So we're entering that territory where we now can look at countries that are more developed than us today and the consumer in those countries today and say, you know what, actually we can see some version of this playing out here too over the next 10 to 20 years. And we're beginning to see it in certain markets in India already. Like if I just break it down, India 1, first 100 million, India 2, rest of urban India, obviously rural, then there's companies which are focused more on global markets. So we're beginning to see these trends already in different parts of the market. So I want to just unpack some of that with you. I guess let's start with first bucket, which is consumers who today are avid consumers online, who have basically experienced all the best consumer internet services out there already. What's the playbook for founders to win with this set and what's changing?
Hey, thanks, Rajinder. So for me, look, as you said, the India 1 consumer is well off. They consume all global content. Their aspirations are global in nature. And they don't, for them, mediocrity is not an option in terms of products and services that they consume. So for somebody to build products and services for that market, it has to be a really world-class or differentiated product or service experience. But probably more importantly, it needs a very differentiated go-to-market. Otherwise, it's just, products will get copied and the margins will get out-competed. And it'll go well for some time, but then it'll go sideways. So at least at Z47, whenever we're looking to invest in consumer internet companies or consumer companies in general, we do over-index on differentiated go-to-markets. Now, there are many different things that people have tried to do over the years. And it seems like one go-to-market that's really catching on fire is the quick commerce wave. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I think it was a trend of the year in 2024, and 25 is just, I think, go from strength to strength. Now, what does that mean for existing incumbents? What in terms of both people who are selling on the platforms as well as e-commerce players? I think that'll be interesting to see. Our view is that quick commerce will become more of a new channel in a way versus one or two players just building out quick commerce.
I thought e-commerce is done and all e-commerce is now equal to quick commerce.
Yeah, everybody will have to just do it, and I think it's what customers want, right? And ultimately, all platforms will need to serve the customers to what they want. And we saw this in next day delivery, same day delivery. Everybody started offering that, so same thing will happen in quick commerce as well. Both across horizontals as well as specific brand e-commerce sites as well.
So quick commerce, I think we all speak about it a lot internally. I think it's done way better than anyone expected. We had looked at Zepto very early, like both you guys know. I think it's a miss for us. We should have been in that company. But today it seems very obvious given how it's played out in the last year and a half. I was just looking at numbers that Adit released a couple of days ago, and they've grown like 7x in the last year and a half, which is just incredible at that scale, right? But I don't think anyone could have predicted that 3-4 years ago. And I remember our internal deal memo when we were looking at it and when we wrote our thesis on this, and we said, listen, if this works, this can be the most disruptive thing that's happened in commerce in a very, very long time. But we just have no idea and no comfort on whether economics will ever play out. Now, I think the jury is still out there because many of these companies are still burning a lot of money. They are in a high growth phase, they are in investment phase. So whether or not they eventually will make money remains to be seen. The increased competition from everybody, and like Rajat said, is this eventually going to be a channel for everybody? Every commerce company will have to be a quick commerce company. I think that thesis is playing out. If you're not delivering through quick commerce, in a few hours or less than an hour, I think, it's customers have basically now become used to that experience. The opposite is also true, that eventually if you build something that customers love, you will find a way to make money. And every consumer company in the world has kind of proven that over and over again. So remains to be seen how it plays out. But it's in a way both encouraging and surprising, because India is one of the few countries where quick commerce actually is working. When we were looking at some of these models in India, I think also biased by how it was playing out around the world, where it kind of blew up in every country. And then to see that it's working out in India is in a way great, because it tells us that, listen, there are things that now India will innovate on, where models actually work in India first, and then other companies kind of copy or take on those models. But it's also in a way surprising, and you worried that, listen, is this just like a false positive that we're seeing, and we've had cases of big blow-ups where things looked good for a while and then they didn't work. So we'll see, I think, but I do feel that it is a big trend and it's here to stay.
My conviction is that I think the trend is very clear. Consumer behavior will eventually dictate what companies will have to do, and that behavior has changed.
Correct.
But specifically to quick commerce, before we, I want to jump to other sectors as well, but I think the plumbing for e-commerce infra is to completely change. Today, yes, whether it's logistics, whether it's software, whether it's category management, companies aren't geared towards delivering in minutes. Frankly, they used to be geared towards delivering in days. Hours was a big stretch, but now they're expected to deliver in minutes. Honestly, I don't think 80% of suppliers, manufacturers, SKUs are even ready. Yeah. And many of them may not be, but there will be a new set of winners and a bunch of losers as a result. Just basis how consumer behavior is changing.
No, but supply chains will have to be re-architected completely from the grounds up to serve this.
And I think all the existing large logistics companies, frankly, don't have the capability, or will have to build that capability. Yeah. They're built for, the previous era of e-commerce with large warehouses, large sort centers, large workforces. I mean, completely irrelevant in some ways in the future if it plays out the way we are describing it.
On India One, I think the other interesting trend line is travel itself, right? Or other such consumption categories which have just taken off vertically over the last post-COVID. There was a revenge travel thing that happened, but after that, it's just sustained. The number of, and in that period, if you think about interesting startups that have come, there are premium visa services startups that have come and done well. Travel accessories companies have come and done well. So I think in this whole similar travel and similar services, for us, KPI has done really well. Yeah. It's a travel credit card company, which are just going to be providing premium services to this tier one audience, which they don't get otherwise. So those areas I think we are continue to be bullish on, and we'll continue to invest.
Yeah. No, I think that's again true. Like in a past life, we had done this, classic consultant-like analysis. All discretionary consumption categories tend to grow at 1.5 to 2x the rate of growth of normal consumption categories. Yeah. Like how much more toothpaste can you buy? I mean, all of us love toothpaste, but so travel, beauty. I know you're an investor in Foxtail. You've spoken about Scapia, travel accessories, like all of these automotive. People are upgrading. People are moving to EVs, better bikes. So discretionary consumption, clear trend. Multiple categories. Premiumization, clear trend. Maybe touch upon a few other things.
Also, education, right? So if you think about all of our kids ended up going to non-CBSE schools, right? Or the young generation is all going to the international schools, and lots of parents in our India One audience are looking to send their kids abroad. I think creating an education ecosystem like for IIT JEE, you got the entire coaching industry came in. For this new generation, which is targeting which will all be global citizens, who will all be global citizens, there has to be an appropriate education infrastructure that will show up for that. And guess what? The founder of one of the largest coaching institutes in his second innings has started that business. Right? So we'll start seeing some of these interesting opportunities emerge for India One.
Even like age-old industries which haven't seen that much innovation, like say, for example, a real estate. I know Tarun, you're very close to Stanza, which is another
Yeah.
example of basically people.
Yeah, I think it's the, zooming out, I think it's the whole consumption upgradation theme playing out. I remember I had heard this first term when we were visiting our colleagues in China. And I was just amazed at all the things that open up the moment consumers actually start opening up their wallets. And I think we have multiple startups in our portfolio today that are playing to that whole premiumization theme. Stanza Living is doing it in the real estate space. For those who who don't know, it's a company that provides accommodation services to sort of school or to college students and to young sort of first-time jobbers. It's the same thing. It's a better experience at a 15-20% premium. It's more full stack. It's more standardized. People are willing to pay for it. You're bundled in Wi-Fi, laundry, air conditioning, all of that into it, and people are paying. And it's surprising how these things are just even a few years ago, one wouldn't have expected this to play out. We've got Foxtail, which you should talk about, which is doing that in the case of beauty. I'm an investor in a company called Aramia or DSLR. This is an ex-Matrix colleague of ours that started up Ankush. They are doing ethnic wear for sort of tier 2, tier 3 audiences. The price points at which he's able to sell some of these things, 100% online, 100% D2C. It's got great early traction. Repeat rates are ones that we haven't seen before. So we're just seeing that theme now play out, and I think it's just the start. This is just going to continue. It'll show up in travel. It'll show up in outbound. One of the first things people do when they get a little rich. I heard this time Goa was less crowded than overseas destinations, and so I think this is a theme that is here to stay as the country continues to kind of become more sort of wealthy. I think a lot of these things which sounded aspirational will start becoming things that people will just start doing.
We've spoken of wealth. The other one is health. I think there's a bunch of companies in the portfolio that have really taken off in the last few years around that theme, and I can see that trend continuing. Maybe touch upon a few and maybe what the insights from those were.
No, so look, the next generation is much more conscious about all of this, right? About how they look, what they put into their body, what do they eat, how do they take care of their own personal health and fitness. And we are seeing that across categories, right? So protein has become such a big part of all of our everyday lexicon, right? And it's not just the tier 1 audience, it's also the tier 2 audience. If you go to a tier 2 city, look at the quality of gyms that are coming up. And it's just again a consumer preference that is changing. They won't settle for mediocrity, and they will look for more better for you kind of products and services. And again, in better for you services, the whole truth of products, whole truth in our portfolio has truly shown us how you can build something which is very consumer first, very product first, very differentiated, and it's grown like very fast.
What's the market share now, and how many months since launch?
So it'll be like in food overall category.
In protein, within protein powders. I think it's number 2 or number 3.
25,
Number 2 or number 3.
25%.
It's probably number 2 or number 3 now
yeah.
in the country in like 18 months.
In
of
18
launch.
months. Yeah.
I mean, another company, Mosaic, again, taking like clinical science, applying
Yes.
that to consumer
Yes.
products, everyday products across categories.
Yeah.
Again, I wouldn't have expected
Correct.
the consumer to upgrade to,
Yeah.
those price points, but clearly better for you.
No, and even Foxtail, right? It's a science-backed beauty and personal care company. Majority of their customers are actually outside the top metros. Like good 60-70% of the people would be in smaller towns. And it's the aspiration of that India 2 that you were just beginning to talk about. That's what's showing up. The everyday lady in that household is actually trying out many different things and ready to pay up a small premium for better for you products.
So we touched upon this a little while earlier, which is plumbing. But we can't complete a podcast on this without talking about how the internet is going through a complete infrastructure revamp. So how does that actually connect back to what you all are talking about?
You're referring to AI.
I hope so.
So I think, to me at least, that's the theme that I am most bullish on, because I do think AI will, in some form, reshape every consumer touch point in ways that I think most of us can't imagine today. And few ideas we were talking, offline about this a little while back. I've heard this conversational commerce term for the last now. 10 years,
Yeah.
right? Maybe more, I don't know. And somehow it's not really played out, right? There's a little bit of searches that are happening and all that. People are maybe using it to leave voice notes, but conversational commerce in the true sense hasn't really played out. And I think now with AI, I can actually see that happening, right? Where there are large sets of audiences that will not have the traditional search, add to cart, checkout kind of experience. Many of them aren't going to be sort of, on sort of the typical shopping experiences. They will just want to tell an Alexa or whoever it is saying, hey, you know what, I'm running out of this, please order a pack and, get it delivered home. That's it. That literally should be the search experience, the shopping experience. And I think a lot of it will play out. So I think one is conversational commerce, especially as a multilingual country like ours, especially in a country where I think there is a lot of aspiration, and now with higher affordability, I think people will start doing that. But the experience and their behaviors will be very, very different.
So are you saying companies like Zomato and Swiggy can be disrupted?
I think companies, any company, not just these, any company stands to be disrupted if they don't keep up with changing consumer preference, right? So I do feel a lot of that will change. People's behaviors will change. Just think of it, the typical tier 3, tier 4, take a small city, let's say Pune, and all the towns 3 hours around it. So let's take Pune as a city, right? And think about smaller towns, 3 hours, 4 hours driving distance from Pune, whether it's a Sangli, whether it's a Ahmednagar, whether it's whatever, right? Think about how that person shops today. What do you think they do? They go to a store, they tell the storekeeper, here's what I want. Now, how does that happen with AI? That's what they will want to do. They aren't used to going inside, a large mall, picking up what they want, adding to cart, checking out. That's not the behavior. And so somebody has to actually think about actually mimicking that experience for that next set of users. Yes, they will want a better experience. Yes, there will be malls. Yes, there'll be supermarkets that they will eventually graduate to. But I think the overall end experience is likely to be very different from what we are seeing today, right? So I think that's clearly one theme where I think things will play out. Second is, he spoke about Foxtail. I think Foxtail is doing a fantastic job in actually going deeper into actually making things more efficacious for the user, right? In terms of a lot of research that they're doing on the products. But the reality is every person is different. Everyone's skin is different. Everyone's composition is different. I am different today versus I was 3 months ago. I think AI takes that to the next level now. If AI helps me understand my body better, it'll actually help me shop products which are far more efficacious for myself. I can use exactly what will work for me. And I think that will play out across. So it's the overall theme of hyper-personalization, where whether it's the foods I eat, whether it's the products I consume and sort of use on my skin, every single thing will undergo disruption in terms of what is exactly right for me. And today, I don't think any company knows you as a n is equal to 1. I know you as, okay, you're a brown guy in this city with this kind of income. There are broad swaths of information.
There are like 10 filters for you to scroll
and
through.
And then you say, here are the products, right? But how do I hyper-personalize to the extent of n is equal to 1? And I think AI will allow that. And I think we will see a lot of change coming as a result of that.
Clear trend line there. Again, with respect to plumbing, Rajat, I don't know if there are companies, maybe go quick.
No, so I was just getting to it that, in the first generation of e-commerce, you got a Shopify. From an India context, Go Quick really has taken in the last 3 years that they've been around. They've helped a bunch of consumer brands become better at their running their e-commerce operations. I think in the world of AI, this will be taken to the next level, right? How do you segment your audience? How do you do marketing communication to them? All using AI. We've seen that already in India that most of these consumer brands won't be able to do this themselves. So the AI first plumbing for each of these consumer brands, not just in India but globally, will get built. It is a good opportunity for an India-first company to also do this, because again, we are no longer behind the West in terms of quality of products that can come out of India, software products, and I think it's a good opportunity for somebody new or someone like Go Quick to actually build this out.
So in the previous generation of e-commerce, you had companies from China basically winning globally. You had PDD, you had Shein, you had multiple companies, right? Do you think there will be companies like that from India?
Yes, we've already seen that, starting to see that. And we can talk about a few. So far, we've seen, because Indian companies have learned how to create world-class products. In some categories, they've always been exporting, but more in a B2B fashion, right? So apparel, we've always exported. Jewelry, we've always exported. India is one of the largest hubs globally for diamond jewelry. STEM education, but it's always been in a B2B setup. But for the first time, Indians have also learned to sell directly to consumers. And Skillmatics, again, we had a chance to invest in it very early. Their first institutional round itself somehow couldn't get over the line. But they've built a fabulous business. They have a very lean supply chain in India, which enables them to test and churn out products very fast at a fraction of the cost. And they sell direct to the consumer in the US. It's highly capital efficient. And Tarun, I know you know them very well as well, so you can chime in. But we've already started seeing that. We've started seeing Mosaic Wellness in our portfolio. They've taken their health and wellness products and selling in the US. It's a vertical takeoff that's happened over there. Or more recently in our portfolio, we've invested in Hue Fine Jewelry. It's a lab-grown diamond-based jewelry company. Again, vertical takeoff in the first year itself is probably the fastest growing brand in our portfolio right now. So it's beginning to happen because, again, products are world-class and Indians are learning how to sell in the Western markets. Yeah,
what do you think is the advantage that some of these founders have, like to be able to build for the world? Because one of the things that we've always seen is people struggle for global GTM, right?
Yeah.
And it's taken multiple experiments and many of them didn't play out. But with something like a U or something like a Skillmatics, like what's your sense of why they are actually succeeding?
I think it is so 2-3 things. One, the India cost structure advantage is playing out in a bunch of these companies. So both in Skillmatics and Hue, their product costs and their supply chain costs in India are a fraction of what it will be for a similar company in the West. So there is an easy 5 to 10% margin improve. That's in the COGS level itself. Coming to go-to-market, I think it's becoming, the playbooks are now well understood, right? How to use social media to market to that customer and so on. What Indian founders lack is understanding the global customer as well, which I think is improving very rapidly, right? Because you can hire teams in the US or wherever you're selling, and at least part of the performance marketing stuff can be done much cheaper sitting in India than in those markets. So even in the US, D2C brands have historically not been profitable, but at least the evidence in India that we've seen so far of companies selling in the US markets, all of those are profitable. Skillmatics is profitable, Hue just turned profitable, Man Matters, that business is profitable, the Ayurveda experience is profitable. So it's just, I think the cost structure advantage really is playing out.
No, I think very exciting. We've covered a few. I guess the last segment, which maybe we didn't talk about as much, was really beyond urban India. And I don't know if we've met as many interesting companies in that segment. Do you have a view?
So I do think there is a lot that still is to be solved. Just going back to what I was saying earlier, if you go to a typical tier 3, tier 4 town and you ask them where do they shop, they've probably heard of Snapdeal, they've probably heard of Meesho. I don't think they're real consumers of too many other products, or at least large populations. Of course, there's always a small this thing. And if you see, a lot of their behaviors today are still very, very old school. I do think they will see a retail revolution just the way urban India saw, just the way it played out in sort of the metros and the tier 1 cities. So is there a DMart for tier 3, tier 4? Absolutely. That play is going to happen. That will come. People have disposable income. They are seeking better shopping experiences. Somebody needs to be able to make the economics work for that in terms of store formats, layouts, etc. So I think that piece will play out. The question really is somebody going to do that just offline, or is it going to be much more omni-channel, where you actually can seek that experience when you want, but they also enable online delivery. So I think a lot of these experiences will be there, which I think just need to get built out. And will get built out.
So for me, I think in that customer demographics, we need to, in the next few years, attempt to really solve their economic outlook in some shape or form before some of these things become a lot more real. And that's why, at least from our fund, we've played either in helping create jobs for those people through companies like Mversity, we're helping them skill them, get them jobs in new sectors. Such as healthcare and so on, because there's lots of aspirations in that market, but very few opportunities. Or we've tried to play that through credit, and we have a bunch of consumer credit companies attempting to do that. So I think as this ecosystem starts getting built out, and people have more money in their hands through either jobs or credit, otherwise, then only consumption takes off. So it's probably better to, at least from our perspective, wait out a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But play that demographics through other means.
And Tarun, maybe the last one for me at least is, we are obviously very close to the mobility sector. I was in the West, in San Francisco recently, and Waymo, like, it's not that far away. Like, it's coming, like some version of autonomous.
If somebody cracks it for India, they can crack it for anywhere in the world. With our roads.
But interestingly, people have now started talking about that. Tesla should acquire Uber and car manufacturer, and and we already have that in our portfolio through Kraus.
Yeah. No. So I think there is a clear product upgradation that's happening with consumers in India, moving to better forms of mobility. It's happening in two-wheelers with the shift to electric. It's happening in cars with the shift, well, hopefully soon with electric as well. But it's already happening with better cars, with more digital cars. Like increasingly, like every car has tons of tech in it. I don't think the consumer is that far away from adopting much more modern forms of transportation.
Yeah.
And there's an infrastructure build out that's happening. The best thing that could happen for the country is, as the country gets richer, we don't need to keep going through this infrastructure rebuild because my lungs can't take it. So if there's smart driving, I think it can certainly
I'm forgetting
help.
the name of the startup. I just read about this investment somebody made on a flying taxi service, which is basically at the price of an Ola and Uber. Now, I have no idea whether it works, but it's good to see people are taking these kind of moonshots. I think I would love to hear what you guys think about any trends in AI and consumer, anything else that excites you. There's a lot of stuff around health, well-being, mental wellness, anything around sort of social media. We can talk about some of those.
So I think I'll take the N=1 trend that you basically spoke of, and I'll flip it. Basically, there are categories which are structured in terms of supply. So clear catalog. And then there are categories which are inherently very unstructured in terms of choices that consumers make. Travel for me is actually an unstructured category. Jobs for me is an unstructured category. And the reason I say that is because obviously both of us may have exactly the same resume, but it's the choice to hire either one of us is a fundamentally an unstructured choice, right? Dating, very unstructured. I think dining out is very unstructured category. So I think a lot of this hyper-personalization, the way it's going to play out, at least in my view, is that I think AI-first products will look very different in terms of consumer experience versus the previous generation of products. Like no one is going to go and search for, let me go and check where is good butter chicken in my neighborhood, what are the photographs of this place. Like beyond a point, like the restaurants in your neighborhood. But if you want to go to another city, I doubt people are going to discover the best places to eat based on the previous mode of searching. Or if it's a new category or similar and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I'll talk about two things. One is just, I think the unstructured category and the way you put it is interesting. So I think one of our colleagues was saying this, right? Today, if I want to plan a holiday, let's say I'm going to South Africa, right? Either I'm using a travel agent and they're telling me what to do, where to go, flight timings, hotel bookings, visas, reservations, all of that. Or I'm crowdsourcing it through some travel blogs, or I'm asking friends saying, hey, send me what you did, right? The reality is all of this AI can do 10x more efficiently. They know my holiday dates, it's all on my calendar. They know what are the things that I generally like to do. They know about me and my family, what's our age group, what have I done in my past holidays. It knows, here are my friends from their social profiles, how many of them have been to South Africa. Actually, all of this can be picked up and literally said, I want a 10-day trip to this based on, I have me, my wife, here's what we like to do, here's my son, he's this old. Technically, right from booking the flight to reserving, making hotel reservations, to planning activities, to making reservations, at the extreme end, it could be one voice command. Literally one voice command, right? And to your point, unstructured stuff, it's probably best to solve using AI. And different people have tried it over the years, and unfortunately, it's still an unsolved problem. So maybe AI is the solve. But I want to give you another example. So we recently invested in this very young startup called Dashtune, which is a little bit on the content side of things. And I don't know about you guys, but as a kid, I used to read a lot of comics.
I've made a comic on Dashtune.
Yes, I know. For your wife, I think you made something. But the reality is today is, how many of us actually still continue to indulge ourselves in reading digital comics? And, when you think about it, one of the biggest barriers was the amount of time and the cost it took to actually, put every frame, right? Every single frame needed to be sort of hand-drawn. So the time and the cost just don't justify it, especially in this age of TikTok where attention spans are so short. Now, what Dashtone does is actually uses AI. Literally, I can imagine anything. I can come up with a storyline. I have a set of characters. I can go to Dashtone Studio, literally describe what I want to see, and Dashtone will just create the entire comic book frame by frame. Depending on different styles, it could be a narrative style, it could be first person, it could be anime, whatever you may call it. Literally with one line command, I can actually create a comic book with like 10 episodes. Now the time and the cost to create that comic is less than 10% of what it would take otherwise, right? And so I just think there's a lot of new, and it's a young startup, so obviously they have a long way to go, but I do think that there is a lot of new content consumption formats that will take off. We've already seen what happened from Netflix era to TikTok era. What happens from the TikTok era to the AI-driven content era is just anyone's guess.
Thank you, guys. Enjoyed this. We didn't plan enough, but I think we got a good bunch of ideas coming out of this one.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like this episode of Zero to Infinity, there are so many more that you must check out. If you like Indian startup content, hearing about founder journeys, or knowing more about emerging sectors that we're investing in, Zero to Infinity is the channel that you need to subscribe to.